The combination of babies and animals is usually not a common practice. Parents have a vital responsibility to ensure the safety of their children, and this includes safeguarding them from their own pets. In their new family home, just as the parents were starting to build trust in their new dog's behavior around their baby, an unexpected incident occurred that left them astonished. David and Susan Anderson were a newlywed couple living in Tampa, Florida. They had been married for 7 years and were finally ready to start a family. Susan had just become a mom to their first baby, Henry, and they were overjoyed. But at the same time, they were concerned about how their dog would react to the new addition. They had adopted their dog just a week ago, and he was still very young. David and Susan didn't expect to have a puppy, but when one of their friends passed away, they took the puppy in because it had nowhere else to go. They quickly learned that having a new puppy meant dealing with a lot of energy. The puppy would zoom around the house, race through the garden, and explore every nook and cranny it could squeeze into. No matter how much they fed the puppy, it always seemed to have plenty of energy left. Healthy puppies are full of beans, but this one might have been a problem. In fact, the vet told them that the puppy even had too much energy. It struggled to sleep sometimes, which might have been impacting its health. Getting enough rest was important for dogs too, and this pup might be getting anxious and nervous because of a lack of sleep. More than anything, the abundance of energy made David and Susan concerned about what might happen when Henry arrived. Could it be dangerous for him? How would the puppy react? They were worried. And today was the day that they brought Henry home from the hospital. After gathering all of their belongings from their room, David swung the car around from the parking lot and picked up his wife. Susan was nursing Henry, who was sleeping soundly in her arms. He had been signed off as healthy by the attending doctors, and now it was time for David and Susan to do everything themselves. The car ride back to the house was quiet. They didn't need to say anything to each other. There was nervousness and excitement in the air. David had been preparing the house for months. Everything was baby-proofed and ready for Henry's arrival. As they pulled into the driveway, Henry slowly opened his eyes to the side of his home. Susan got out of the car slowly and carried him inside while he looked around, surveying the new environment. The lights were a little bright, and he tucked his head into the darkness of his mother's armpit. But moments later, Henry would be roused from his rest. As soon as they were through the front door, the puppy was jumping at their feet, trying to climb up and see what was wrapped in Susan's arms. It could sense that something special was there and wanted to see for itself. But David intervened. He rushed to put the dog gates and separated from Susan, which only made it confused. Henry was quickly taken into his room. Waiting for him was a freshly painted blue room with a shiny new crib the parents had assembled just the day before. While they had been setting it up, the puppy had played with David and Susan, even running through the paint bucket and flinging specks of blue all over when it shook its body dry. But the puppy was in for a shock today. As the parents entered the room behind them, the door was closed, with the puppy left looking up at the door with a tilted head. It was the first time he wasn't allowed to follow his parents, and he didn't understand. Just days earlier, he was allowed to run around every room, jump up on the couch, and even sleep on the bed with the parents. But after Henry arrived, the puppy realized that things had changed. It was often locked out of the room with the baby inside, and the bed was off limits too, because the baby sometimes settled there when it couldn't sleep, and that made 2 of them. Because with the arrival of Henry, the puppy slept even less than before. It had the same amount of energy as ever, and now it couldn't get rid of it. It had lost its 2 playmates and was left sitting around waiting. With the parents solely focused on Henry, it wasn't feeling enough affection or attention. At first, the puppy cried out and moaned, but when that didn't work, it tried a different strategy. As the days went on, the puppy began to really behave itself, so Susan and David decided to slowly introduce it to Henry. But it was a careful procedure. They started by letting it sniff the baby's head to get a feel for Henry's scent. Susan held him tightly, ready to scoop him out of the way if the puppy acted up. After the puppy passed that test, everyone became more relaxed. Soon, it progressed to the 2 sitting on the couch together, almost all by themselves. The puppy would come up close to the baby, snuggle, and roll around on the couch with him. Henry stuck out his arms to grab the puppy and laughed when it tickled him. They were a match made in heaven, and their parents were overjoyed. It was clear to them that there was nothing to worry about. But they let their guard down. They were about to be shocked by the effect Henry had on the puppy. It was a slow Sunday afternoon, and everyone was resting in the house. Well, almost everyone. David and Susan were cuddling each other on the couch under a blanket, and the little baby was sleeping face down atop a blanket on the floor of the living room. Henry was at the point where leaving him almost anywhere could lead to a deep nap. Watching him nod off even made David and Susan feel sleepy. But as usual, the puppy wasn't tired. By now, the vet had given the puppy some medication to help it rest, but nothing seemed to work. The vet had told them that if they find anything that helps, do it. Sometimes when the puppy hadn't slept in a while, it could be a little unpredictable. So when it crept up behind Henry, the parents watched over them from the couch. They both sat upright and kept a close eye on the two of them, ready to intervene if the pup was disturbing him. After slowly waddling up to the blanket, it sat near the baby's head, gently rocking itself back and forth. A few seconds later, it circled around Henry's small body and brushed up against him. They were about the same size now, and it felt like the puppy was beginning to see him more as a brother than another pet. From there, it looked like Henry's nap might be ending early. But instead, the puppy rested its head on top of Henry's head. What happened next was the most shocking, though. The puppy shut its eyes quickly at first before shutting them for longer and longer. It only took a few more seconds, and the puppy was asleep. Susan and David looked at each other. It was astonishing. The puppy really was sound asleep right on top of their baby, and the two looked more comfortable than ever. They had tried everything they could think of to help get this puppy to sleep, and the secret ended up being Henry. They both laughed. The fact that they had been stressing about bringing Henry home felt a bit ridiculous now. After that, everything was different. The puppy had no trouble sleeping anymore. Whenever it had difficulty sleeping, the parents just placed it near Henry. They didn't even have to be touching each other. Sometimes the puppy slept under Henry's crib at night, and that worked well too. The puppy would watch Henry from under the crib while their parents rocked Henry to sleep. Once the lights were turned off, the puppy would rest its head and fall asleep too. Even when the puppy grew up, nothing changed. It still wanted to be near Henry, and if Henry wasn't at home, the puppy couldn't sleep well. Babies often have a companion to sleep with, and this might be the first time a dog needed one. Let us know in the comments section. I hope you liked this video. Please give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved one. Also subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel.